And the result of that exercise, which was very interesting, was people who have clear and succinct problem statements and solution statements, which was very surprising to me. Like, it actually said that this is the ideal length of a problem statement that is getting through. In terms of investments, our pace is ramping up a little bit. I think we'll be making at least 2 investments every month, or maybe 3 every 2 months.
And so how do you see that evolving over the next 6 months?
Yeah, I think very few people talk about this, but we spend every week with every company. I don't think even funds that are much larger than us, which have smaller portfolios.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of a Junior VC Founders Unfiltered. We have a special edition this week. Aviral's back to give us an update on the fund. It's been 10 months since we launched the Junior VC fund. And in that time, it's been a really crazy couple of months. 8,500 applicants, 11 investments. That's almost one a month, more than one a month. It's insane. Let's jump into it with the numbers. You've published some stats on LinkedIn that I'm sure everyone's seen. I would love to dive more into it. First, tell us, break that number down, 8,500 applicants.
Right.
Where are people applying from? Where in India? What does the cohort look like?
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I think, maybe we can even reference the stats in the conversation because we have it. What I was most surprised with was the number of people coming outside of the top 20 cities. So how we, everything at AJVC is very data driven. So we actually know the sources of where our companies are coming from. No surprises, LinkedIn is one of the largest. It's almost 57% of companies come from there, but there's a variety of other sources too. And similarly, we ask founders where they have incorporated in and where they're building out of. So Bangalore and Delhi NCR are number 1 and 2. They're quite close actually. Bangalore is not that much larger than Delhi NCR. But the surprising one was other in India, which is outside your top 20 cities. So your top 20 cities would probably end at like maybe say Kanpur, perhaps, or whereabouts. And was really surprised to see about 14 to 1500 being other in India. The 1700 are Delhi NCR and 1900 are Bangalore, but other in India is a very, very large group, and this obviously changes every day. So pardon me if my numbers are off by a few hundreds, but that's that's really the range. Bombay is in number 4, and then there's Hyderabad and Pune. I would say this is very reflective of how India is also progressing as an economy and a country. And these are like the 5 cities I think are the most vibrant from a startup ecosystem and entrepreneurial ecosystem as well. I was not very surprised to find Kolkata like just struggling to make it in the top 10. It's kind of fallen out in the new age ecosystem where there are very few companies that are getting built out of Kolkata. Although it's a very large city, it's one of the preeminent centers at one time, obviously the richest and the largest in India. So it's quite interesting. In fact, when you even look at the composition of the cities that we've invested in, this kind of structure is there. Surprisingly, we have 1 investment in Guwahati and 1 investment in Dumka, which I could not even place on a map when the team applied, but it's in Jharkhand. And it's, I think, 3 or 4 hours or even more away by road from Ranchi. So you need to travel like at least 10 hours to get there. It's literally in a corner. And Guwahati, of course, everyone knows is in Assam. So it's quite fascinating to see teams coming from everywhere. Jaipur is becoming an interesting place for building companies. We're seeing a lot of very promising teams coming from there. In fact, we've invested in one already, and there are a couple of more interesting teams from Jaipur. Bombay, kind of expected. Delhi, NCR, and Bangalore, like I said. We're here to open our account in Pune, of all places. I'm based out of it, but somehow there's not been anyone who's got the investment yet from here. And Chennai and Hyderabad. So like Chennai, Hyderabad, Pune is still, but I think over time we'll end up finding some companies in these three cities as well.
No, that's fascinating. Just the breadth of applicants. And what about the ideas? I'm sure you've got a wide variety of ideas. Can you the bigger themes that you're seeing?
Yeah, so I actually talked about this a few days back, and I was surprised by the response. When I put out that these are the exact same ideas being built by multiple teams. So the most surprising to me was prebiotic, probiotic beverages, which was like 19 teams doing it. Like, it was insane. Like there were like 19 teams in the last 3-4 months who are doing this in a very different format, obviously.
And just to double click on that, are there like a lot of variations between the 19, or is it kind of
not really? They're actually quite similar.
Right?
Yeah, you can't. So prebiotic, probiotic, there were a lot of mental health improvement apps, a lot, like hey, will improve mental health, AI based marketing agencies, that was a big theme. I'm talking about these specific ideas because I found them recurring and interesting. Like, given we have 8,500 applications and the most recurrent idea was 19, shows you how many variety of ideas are there. Almost every new company is a different idea. But even then at scale, you start to see a lot of people trying to do the same thing. They want to do fashion fast and things like that. And a lot of founders ping me, a lot of investors ping me. They're like, hey, this is super interesting. Yeah, these sectors suck. That was their response. Although I never mentioned that, by the way. I actually said that they're quite interesting. I think fundamentally, from a problem statement, the markets that are very large tend to attract a lot more people. And somebody ends up building a company. Now, the problem is that a lot of founders don't really know who this somebody is, and many times they think they're the only people. So my whole reason of sharing that was just to educate, saying that, hey, if you're building in this space, it's not that wide open. It's quite competitive already, even at the earlier stages. Now, if you look at just like macro themes, AI is the biggest. There are about 2,200 companies that have an AI component in what they're doing. The second is consumer tech, which is about 1,700. Then you have consumer brands, you have B2B, you have fintech, health tech. It again is following the kind of trends that are there in the Indian ecosystem. But we are seeing a lot of very India specific building happening. It's not necessary that the companies that are being built are being copied from what is already working in the US. I fundamentally think that India will, like if I look at AI specifically, India will have a lot of verticalized AI solutions, that is applications that are focused on a specific use case, and they'll do it really well. Similarly, I believe the fast service or ultra fast service as a theme is going to pick up in a lot of different verticals as well. It's not just going to be limited to groceries, but it's also going to be done in multiple other services, where people's expectations in India have become set to do things faster. And I'm slightly older bird in the ecosystem. I've been there from 2016, although I was very young when I joined, but I've seen one cycle at least. Even in 2016, there was this, we'll get you house help at your doorstep very easily. They were literally called Book My Didi, etc. Like these were the kind of names, and I'm seeing that coming back again. I think this time it might be, I mean, they always say, VC say this time is different, and I'm a little skeptical usually. But I think this time what has happened is incomes have grown a lot, and people, especially the TG, values time. Now, how large this opportunity will end up being is a question. Like, are these valuations justified today? And all the heat that's getting into the ecosystem justified? But I think the requirement for fast services is very real. And it'll not just be, in house help, it will also be for car servicing. It will be for like laundry, ironing. There are going to be a bunch of things that we do, especially in metros, that people will want to
go faster.
Get faster. Correct. Because now they are able to ascribe value to that time. They're willing to pay for it. And we are seeing teams trying to build in that. And I think there's pretty clear early momentum too. It isn't like, they just come up with it and nobody's buying it. You can see that there are customers using it.
Really interesting trends. How about, do you see any intersections between like the demographics, bigger cities versus applying and some of the ideas? Any intersections there that you can share?
I think the one big difference between the metro city entrepreneurs and the let's say more smaller city entrepreneurs is that the smaller city entrepreneurs are more focused on the more physical, tangible kind of stuff and delivering that through technology. It isn't like they're not building AI companies. Like, in fact, the Guwahati companies are AI CA. So that's obviously not non-tech. But in general, if I have to like look at the data, there are more consumer brands coming out of there. They're more like physical goods that they can sell through Amazon and others, versus in from tier 1 cities you have more technology driven, tech driven AI companies that maybe have a more global outlook in terms of nature. That's happening. I also think more of the B2B companies are coming from metros, and the non-metros are like more B2C. And they're more consumer focused and less, percentage wise, less consumer focused, which I guess is natural. I mean, I think in metros there's just more exposure and things like that to do B2B stuff. So it is quite fascinating. I don't think, at least my big learning here is, India is not a very monolithic entrepreneurial market. Like, if you look at the US, like, everyone just focus on SF. And even if you look at the distribution of companies, it's very SF. Like, the data is also SF is everything. But in India, it's not true. In fact, I think Delhi is giving Bangalore a real run for the money. Bangalore is sleeping, in my view, of actual business creation. In fact, if you look at a large percentage of companies that have gone public are from Delhi and not Bangalore. And even the ones that are in pipeline are from Delhi, more are from Delhi and less are from Bangalore. So there are definitely two competing centers in India. Like, Bangalore is not 10x bigger than Delhi or even 2x bigger than Delhi. I would say it's like a 10-20% delta at this point. And there are other cities, and you could count Bombay and Pune as one, maybe Chennai and Hyderabad as one. They're a little far, but you can think of that as one ecosystem. I think that there are multiple centers, competing centers, and India is too vast and too interesting to just be one city. And I think the AJVC presence, like, which is all the which is unsaid here, but the presence across so many different locations is a bit unique. I think if you look at portfolios of a lot of VC firms, they might be very concentrated in the locations that they're present. But physical proximity is not a necessity for us to invest.
It's amazing. And, talking about AI and the future of work and what you're seeing with the startups that you're investing in.
Yeah.
I like the example of a AI-enabled CA. How do you think that changes, CA being a job that most people looked up to and it was something that people worked towards?
Right.
Is the industry going to be disrupted, or is it? What are your thoughts? I would love to kind of pick your brains on.
So I think in the investments with descriptions we've disclosed. So there's a AI-based CA, there's an AI-based compliance agent, there's a AI-based e-commerce analyst. There's a company that, I don't know how to simplify its description, but I'll take a shot. They record videos of you doing things, and then a browser agent executes it. So, you can say like a robotic process automation, RPA is probably the closest. So that's also in our portfolio. I think fundamentally all of these companies are making people more productive. Like, they're getting a lot of pull from large organizations, small organizations, people. It is going to make work more fun, is what I think. Like, a lot of the CA firms or the CAs are working with this company that we invested in, and because they've announced, we can name them. It's called Chop. They are very happy to get rid of the grunt work, which is kind of repetitive, but also not easily replicable with rules-based systems only. Like, you have to use a little bit of judgment. That's why AI comes in. They're very happy to let it go and let a agent do it. I don't think they're like holding on to it. In fact, one of the very interesting things that the founder told me was that the CAs who he went and pitched to did not even realize that they were doing stuff repeatedly till he showed it to them. They accepted it as part of their workflow,
Yes.
And I see it. Like, when they're doing the same thing every day, they're like, hey, this is
muscle memory. Right? You do it again.
Yeah, this is what I do. Like, this is how they thought. And then he's like, hey, what if I can automate this for you? And they're like, oh yeah. It's not like they're thinking, I must automate. Most people are not thinking that way. So I think people, human beings want to be more optimized and be more productive. The whole history of time since we've been, documenting ourselves, the amount of hours people have worked has reduced. And I think most of the stuff that AI will come and kill us and take all our jobs is just BS. I don't believe it. I think in our lifetimes it's not going to happen. So what do I know after another 100 years what happens? But I think that most people are very happy to adopt these tools, and it's making a positive difference in their lives. It's not negative.
With AI, I think one of the challenges, especially for fresh grads, right? People just out of college, who are looking for jobs, or just thinking about whether they should start up or go to a corporate. How would you think about it? Like, put yourself in that position. If you were graduating right now, what would you do? How would you prepare yourself for the world?
It's a very, very good question. So I was talking to someone who I'm close to, who's MD at a large fund, and he mentioned that, I mean, they're a global fund, so they invest in the US and then in other geographies, including India. And he mentioned that one of their latest investments was in a 16-year-old who's building an AI company. Like,
That's insane.
That construct itself is so strange, but also like it makes sense. And why I'm going with that is because you asked the question. The average age of our founders themselves is like 24, 25. So they're young. There's some as young as 21 or 20 even. For a lot of high agency people, AI has become an unlock that has never happened before for anybody of that age group. Because what AI has done is it has put you, me, somebody who's 10 years older than us and somebody who's 10 years younger than us at the same plane, because we're all zero.
And even for corporates and startups, right?
Everyone's the same, right? It's like, this is what happens with new tech, right? It flattens knowledge arbitrage or gaps. And for young people who are ambitious and high agency, it's just become the tool to help them progress. So if I would say one piece of advice I'd give someone who's young and starting out would be to embrace these tools and become excellent at it. A usual outcome for someone like this would be they'll become an entrepreneur, which is the best, I think. This is the time to try. But even without that, I think a lot of these companies are struggling with not knowing what they could do with the new technology. And if there's someone who they're looking at hiring who's able to understand and put to practice a lot of this stuff, they'd be very valuable. So I think that there are going to be a lot of opportunities for people like that. And AI is an advantage and not a disadvantage for someone who's using the tools well. That's my view.
Oh, I agree. I think especially for kids, the next generation that grows up with AI around them, I think it'll be a different world to live in.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder what that'll be like. But yeah, I mean, looking to the future, what does the next year look like for a junior VC, the fund?
Yeah, I think it's super exciting. So a lot of things are in the works and under wraps. Everyone hopefully hear about them in the next few months. I think we are in a very privileged, and I'd say I'm very grateful and quite lucky to be where we are, given the fundraising environment, given, how hard it generally is to start a fund. It's not easy, guys. So if you're trying, just think twice, thrice, and 7, 8 times, 10 times, as many times as you want to think. So I think we've, on the fundraising side, there's been a huge amount of momentum and interest. So we closed 100 crores just a few months ago. And there's a lot of interest from LPs to come into the fund. I think, you'll hear a lot more on how we're thinking about scaling the fund and the platform. In terms of investments, our pace is ramping up a little bit. I think we'll be making at least 2 investments every month, or maybe 3 every 2 months for the foreseeable future. So we are going to become very, very, very active. And the ethos is going to remain the same. That's not going to change. We want to back teams at the earliest stages, do pre-seed bets, and we'll continue to move extremely fast so that it continues to feel like magic for founders. So we've kept improving our processes. One of the very interesting things that I'm seeing is many fund managers who are, a little early in the game starting to follow this speed thing. Like we respond and we give you an answer in 2 weeks. I never used to see all of this before, but it's popping up a lot now. We'll get back to you in 2 days or 3 days. We'll give you an answer in 2 weeks. Now I don't know how the systems are to ensure this happens, but it's really good. I think it is a move in the right direction where VCs are also holding themselves accountable to founders. We should. That's how it is. So I think we'll keep that the same and try to get better at it. But on the fund and on the investments that we're doing, there's a lot of exciting stuff, and we're seeing scale happening very fast.
And just talking about that, I have to ask, 8,000 applications, that incredibly fast turnaround time. AI obviously plays a role we've spoken about before. Can you talk us a bit about your process and how your process has evolved in the last few months specifically?
Yeah, so we have a 3-stage process similar to before. I think what has continued to improve is we've kept making the systems better that are operating behind the scenes. Like our stage 1 process is super fast, and now that turnaround time has hit like 30 hours median. It's almost consistently hitting that amount of time. On our stage 2, we've actually started to nuance the questions even more than what we did before. So when we started and today, there's, I'd say, at least a 30% delta in terms of what we are gathering, what we are asking, and getting a flavor of what's happening. And finally, in the interview stage, when we started out, the interviews were like a little I don't know what's the right word, but not as detailed and nuanced as they are today. So now we have like a list of questions that emerge based on what the company is building. Obviously, we asked them for a P&L, which I think was a fantastic tool both for the founders as well as us to understand each other better. And these small tweaks over time, which obviously has not been a long time, but still have improved the process on both sides for us as well as for founders. And, I think at this point we have one of the largest data sets on pre-seed investing or pre-seed startups in India. I don't think it is the largest data set. I'm quite keen to see what we can do with it even more, where we, put this to work and improve our decision making, improve our founder experience, improve our turnaround time even more. I don't think we've explored the full potential of this yet.
And there's the other side of running a fund, which is actually working with the 11 companies and now growing. And so how do you see that evolving over the next 6 months?
Yeah, I think very few people talk about this, but we spend every week with every company. I don't think even funds that are much larger than us, which have smaller portfolios, operate at that frequency. Like, we really want to support our companies. So I'm speaking to them every week. And trying to support them where they need help. In fact, one of the founders told me that in the week, the 30 minutes they spend with us is the highlight. I don't think anybody says that about their investor unless the investor is like helping them in some way. So, I asked them to see me as their extended pair of hands, their brainstorming partner, whatever you want to call me. I'm there. Even in these portfolio interactions, it's very organized and well planned. So we go through a list of agenda items, we track it every week. We have different tools we use to see like things are getting done. And there are these proprietary materials I've created which are only exclusive to our portfolio companies. So on that side, there's actually been a lot of innovation in the last 3-4 months, specifically. And that side, I think we don't talk about much, but it will become a very interesting platform in itself too.
It certainly sounds like a great place for founders to be. And as for those who have listened to the end of this episode, maybe you can share a bit of advice for applying for a junior VC fund. What should people do to stand out?
I think there needs to be a lot of clarity in your problem statement and your solution. We've run the algorithm actually on the algorithm, and I'll explain what that means. I wanted to see that can I predict based on some unexpected parameters who's likely to get selected at the end. And the result of that exercise, which was very interesting, was people who have clear and succinct problem statements and solution statements, which was very surprising to me. Like, it actually said that this is the ideal length of a problem statement that is getting through, which was very surprising. Like, I mean, I did not expect that. But what that really means is your problem statement really clear, and is your solution really clear? I've seen a lot of founders write 5 words in their problem statement. It's impossible to understand what you're doing. And then there's some founders who written 500 words in their problem statement. It's too large. So really think deeply about your problem and solution. And that can't come by just you thinking about it. You also have to talk to potential customers and people who could use your product. When you read a problem statement and a solution statement, as an investor, I've seen so many companies now, there are 8,500 in our database itself. So I can safely claim I've seen those many. The clear problem statements and solution statements stand out. So what I would say is work on that. That'll really help your chances.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Aviral, for walking us through your journey and the update. And yeah, looking forward to see what's next.
Yep. Thanks, Mazin.
Thanks everyone for tuning in.